The explosive feud between South East St. Anne Member of Parliament Lisa Hanna and one of her councillors, Ian Bell, has taken another turn. Our news centre disclosed yesterday that Hanna has reported Bell to the police and alleged that the councillor told her that he thumped her in her face. Bell, who's councillor for the Beechertown division in South East St. Anne, has moved to Cllr. He's revealed stunning details about what he says was a showdown between him and Hanna at a recent PNP mediation meeting in Runaway Bay, St. Anne. Siobhan Campbell reports.
Bell says in attendance at the mediation meeting were Michael Whittingham, Philip Service, Judith Freeborn, and well-known St. Anne-based comrade James Walsh. The councillor says while the constituted party hearing was taking place, Miss Hanna called him a freak. Bell says he responded to Hanna and told her, quote, "Let's call Mr. Denzel MacDonald and ask him, out of me or you, which one of us does he know as a freak," end quote. Denzel MacDonald is an influential businessman and PNP activist in Southeast St. Anne. MacDonald is more popularly known as Wizzy. Councillor Bell says when he made the comment about Wizzy, he could see the awe on Miss Hanna's face. The councillor says he then told Hanna, quote, "If you don't stop calling me a freak, I will thump you in your mouth," end quote. Bell says Hanna replied, quote, "I bet you me a go tell me husband say you would thump me in my mouth and see what go happen," end quote. The councillor says he told Hanna she should go ahead and telephone her husband, Richard Lake. Lake is a prominent businessman and former member of the PNP National Executive Council, NEC. The councillor says he told Hanna, quote, "You know, have to go, just call him on your phone and go tell him no," end quote. He says the Southeast St. Anne MP shouted, quote, "Thumb in my mouth, Bell, you forget that me have a black belt," end quote. Councillor Bell says Miss Hanna had to be restrained by James Walsh not to carry out her black belt training on him. He says while he remained seated in his chair, Judith Freeborn walked over to him and said, quote, "Sit down, the boss, don't get up," end quote. The councillor is questioning if Hanna felt threatened, why she'd leave St. Anne and travel past several police stations, only to make a report to the police in St. Andrew a few days later. Councillor Bell says a high-ranking policeman who Hanna spoke to explained to him that his words do not constitute a threat because they were a conditional expression. The councillor says he was given the option of reporting Miss Hanna to the police for saying she'd call her husband and he, Bell, what would happen thereafter. Bell says a report was also made against him to the Custis in St. Anne. He says the report concerned the verbal altercation he had with Hanna. The PNP councillor says he explained to the Custis what had transpired and was cleared of wrongdoing. Bell says he hopes Miss Hanna told her husband the truth about what really happened in the meeting and what he had said to her. Councillor Bell gave his version of events in a WhatsApp message, which was sent yesterday to some comrades. The message was obtained by Nationwide News. Our news centre spoke to Councillor Bell last night and asked him to confirm that he authored the message. The PNP councillor replied, quote, "My name, my words, how you get this," end quote. Miss Hanna has repeatedly failed to respond to efforts by our news centre to get a comment from her on the bitter feud between her and Councillor Bell, who was one of her main loyalists in the South East St. Anne constituency. Siobhan for Nationwide News.